Former Springbok legend and prop Willie Hills, he was also a hooker, joins us today on Front Row Rugby. Willie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, here's today's trivia question. Who scored the Springboks' first try after readmission? If you know the answer, you can put it in the comment section below. We'll also find out if Willie knows the answer to that question at the end of our conversation. Willie, firstly, just before we get started, I know you're an Afrikaans guy, but with a surname like Hills, what's the story there?
Well, my parents, my great-grandparents, they immigrated from Wales, from a place called Treorchy, down in the Coal Valley.
Now, Willie, before you became a Springbok, I know that you played in the front row, prop and hooker, but also before that, you were playing as a flank. Just talk to me about the various positions that you were playing and how that all evolved.
I played provincial rugby. I think I'm only one of only two people. I think Uli Schmidt, and I think a guy who passed away, Paul Botha, also played for the fullback for the Bulls. We only two played provincial primary school, high schools, B-side under 20, and at the end for the Bulls. At school, I played mostly flank, number 6, 7, or those days there wasn't a 6 and a 7. And I played my initial provincial rugby for the Northern Transvaal those days at the position of flank. I played for my club Police flank, and I was sometimes substituted as a hooker at that stage. So that's how I actually, my first couple of games I played for Northern Transvaal B side, or on 25 side those days, also as a flanker, and then substitute on a hooker. And those days you only had a number 2 reserves, like a number 16, and one forward and one back. So I also did other sports, like I was a powerlifter. I also got my national colours in that. So because I was strong, I could substitute in the whole front row those days, and that's how it started, that I evolved from a flanker into a front row, one of the front rows.
Now, I mean, that kind of versatility would make you an asset to any coach. I think these days you would definitely have been one of the bomb squad members.
Yeah, after me, John Smith also play a very similar role. I know I'm elected. I think I was the first Springbok ever been selected as at the loose at number 1 jersey, and number 2 jersey, and in the tight head position, because I could do all 3 of them. And I also occasionally play for Northern Transvaal those days. I played all of those positions during provincial matches and friendly matches and so on.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit the like button?
And then you finally got your chance for the Springboks in 1992 against France. We won that match as well. How special was that experience for you?
Well, to win any test match I think is very special. I think if you play for the Springboks and you've succeeded in winning test match, it's just so much special to do that. We started in 1992. We had mixed results because we came back after a long period of isolation, and that first team selected when we initially returned, a lot of us were not youngsters anymore. If you take Naas Botha and Dani Gerber and all those guys who played, even Uli and Schmidt and the other people selected, well, we phased out within 2 or 3 years before Kitsch got a new group together, and we actually win the World Cup after that. So it came a bit late for us, because we were almost at the end of our careers, a lot of us. But we had the opportunity to play for South Africa, which we could not do prior to that.
Willie, we had Adrian Richter on a previous episode of Front Row Rugby. I'll actually put the link to that video up here. And he commented on that 1992 tour to France and England, especially the France leg of the tour. And he said it was one of the toughest experiences he had ever had. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, immensely. I mean, we were not treated well by the French. We were, I mean, these days people that go overseas beforehand, that decide on the places you stay, on the sort of food you're gonna get, and all of those. How far away what will the practice venues like, and how will all the and you conclude a contract. Those days, not being put up in a hotel in the smallest of rooms, far away, out of town, like in the countryside. We traveled great distances to go for practices. I really tried to make it as comfortable as possible. And what is really one of the things that happened in those days, they tried to make us out as these rude Afrikaners. Quite negative publicity arises around that tour also. Created by the South African press as well, and it was extremely difficult to tour there those days, because there were no proper contracts in terms of, as I said, and we had this negative publicity around us as these unfriendly Afrikaners, which was not true. They tried to make it as difficult as possible. I mean, I remember guys like Adolf Milan and Driekus Harten and those guys, the big guys, have to share a room. I mean, both of them can't even turn around in that room. And I think one of the occasions was where the management the then management said, in one of the hotels, I can't remember, I think it was in Paul, that said, we will not stay here. I can't allow the players to perform, the team to perform, and eat dry chicken every day. And then they refused to go into the hotel. Let us into the hotel, and said, we're not going to stay here. They got to provide another hotel. There is enough space, where there's conference rooms, 2 team rooms, and all those stuff. And I think that creates the negativity, publicity around that touring group at that stage.
I also had Nas Botha on as a guest on Front Row Rugby. He was actually the first interview that we had. I'll put a link up to his interviews here as well. And he spoke about provincialism, the idea that in those days the Northern Transvaal guys were sort of sticking together and the Western Province guys were hanging out together. What was your experience of that?
Absolutely. I experienced the same at that stage. You must remember that we came out of a history where we have played. The only rugby we knew was provincial rugby, and we were very proud of your union first. And at that stage, 1992, our team, the Northern Transvaal, had a very, very strong provincial team as well. So over years, I think there were also animosity between us and the Lions, for instance, the Transvaal at that, between the players, not the provinces, but between the players. So it was quite an adjustment. In those days, the only time we had the opportunity to play together and make friendships as teammates were, in those days, you had the northern side and the southern side that played each other, those teams. And then if you're in the northern side, then you were being selected with Lions players, of the Leeu Transvaal players and other players, and that's the only time you had the opportunity to play together, apart from the national side, which was only selected in 1992. So yes, provincialism played a great part at those days in forming a proper team, because we haven't those days. There were also the rules, amateur rules around the game, is that like today, in today's time, Nimnaber and the current Springbok coach can have practice camps and have the coaching camps and have the guys together for 2 weeks and 1 week here, and they all stay together, they live together, and they have one common goal and one common vision of what they want to create, and know each other. And because if you stay together, you know each other. And those days we're not. I mean, 3 days before the tour we get together, and we don't know each other. So and the captain is maybe the captain was not everybody's captain at that stage, or how it works. I mean, everybody. And Nas was such a big figure, determining figure in the games, that until today you get people that's Nas friends and supporters and not Nas supporters, and some supported Jannie Breed, and some supported these guys, because at that stage it's very simple. We didn't got together enough to know each other and form a common goal in this. And then there was political influences. I mean, we could not have for instance, sing the old stem together. When we played, we couldn't rally around a common flag or a common song or common values, because that still have to be determined by the politicians, at that stage.
Absolutely. So, Willie, on to 1993, John Williams had obviously been sacked after that 1992 tour. Ian McIntosh then came in, and you were selected to play against France again, this time at loosehead. And I'm interested to know from you, having played loosehead, tight head, and hooker, all the three positions across the front row, what would you say was your favorite position?
I love the loosehead position, it gives me a lot of freedom to move around. I like to move around the park and play with the ball in hand. I also always set myself goals that during the first half I will try to handle so many times the balls, put so many tackles in. That is my personal goals in a game, and lose and to make a difference in a game. And I think I was quite skillful in handling, and I was quite quick around the park because I played flank my whole life, and that suits my game a lot.
So, Willie, after that France series at home, we went to Australia playing against the Wallabies. They were the world champions at the time, and the Springboks won the first test in Sydney. What was the atmosphere like in the dressing room after that win?
We wanted to win the game. I mean, it was Mac's first tour as a coach, and we have been gelling much better. We came together as a team much better. Mac had a very special way he treated us, and the way he handled his players. Until today, I will have the greatest respect for that guy, and the way he went around and creating and the team and the goals for the team. So we went on there and we won the game, and it was a special moment for us. The other thing is, personally, I always say that I could, as a personal motivation as a player, that I could play a game anywhere. It doesn't matter. The park mustn't influence, or where I play mustn't influence the way I play. So I could play. I totally lock the spectators out of my mind and just concentrate on my job at hand. And I think that's sometimes the most important thing. And sometimes they overplay. I think the benefit is of a home game. So an away game. If you're really a professional and dedicated, and you have your own personal goals in a game, then it doesn't matter where you play. You must just go on there and do and reach and achieve your own goals.
Willie, that was also your last test match for the Springboks in 1993 against the Wallabies in Sydney. Was it because of injury that was the end of your Bok career?
Yes, I torn my crucial ligaments in my right knee, and I had to come back. Then that was a long rehabilitation period. Then I got back in. I at the end of 2004. I started to playing. 1994 again, provincial rugby. In 1995, provincial rugby again, coming back. And I was at 1995 in the beginning included into the Springbok, for the World Cup, the group, which I attended some of the practices and training. And in those days, you played also provincial rugby. So we played against, just before the final announcements of the final group for the 1995, I then got injuries in my neck with my discuses and against the Free State, and then that was the end of my career.
Do you regret not having had the opportunity to play professional rugby?
I think all of us. I think if you see the crazy money that the guys are getting, and the crazy opportunities the guys are getting. I always say, Peter, and it's very simple. The team of 1992, if you go through that team, the starting 15 against France, for instance, or the the one when we started against the All Blacks and the Wallabies in 1992. I think that I know Donnie Gerber, and I said it with a greater respect, was the only guy who didn't have a degree. All of us were qualified, or you have a national diploma in teaching, or you have a degree, and all of us, I mean, we have doctors, we have actuaries, we have MBA, we had tandartsen, what do you call it?
Dentist
in the team. So you had all the spectrum, all of them had degrees. BComs. I mean, these days, I think you get one maybe who's qualified. And so luckily, those days, different times, we all studied. Most of us, I think, if you go through that team, I mean, the attorneys, the doctors, and all of those, we're in a team. And so we all studied. So we all qualified. We had a professional careers, and we have our rugby careers. So that was the difference. Today, some of the rugby players, I mean, they don't study, they make a lot of money, and sometimes I cannot transfer that to life skills as well, but that's another matter for another day. But that was that's just how we worked. That's just how we those days operate.
Willie, I like to finish on something funny or light-hearted. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you if you could share with us a memorable or light-hearted moment from your time with the Springboks.
After the win of 1994, and that's something special I always remember, is when we played that test against France. Well, late that evening, my daughter was born here in South Africa, my latest daughter, or the youngest one. And Garth Wright called all of us together. And now we're celebrating the birth of my youngest. And we started, because now we want a name. No, guys say, no, we must pick a name for my daughter. And so we start drinking, and after every glass, the wine, because we were in France and we got all this wine for free. And we started drinking on a name and trying to select. And every time a name come up by one of the team members, then they said, no, it's not a good name. You've got to drink, and back and forth. And then Garth Wright come up with the name of my youngest and say, you think Vanessa will be a good name? And that was the name that my daughter was Christian. So that was a special. So my daughter was a team effort in terms of naming her.
That's a great story. All right, Willie, just before I let you go, I mentioned at the beginning of the video our trivia question. So here it is again. Who scored the Springboks' first try after readmission? Willie, before I reveal the answer, I want to check if you might know the answer.
No, I think it's the winger. Wasn't it James Small?
Now, James Small actually dropped the ball, if you remember, against the All Blacks. But just before that, Donnie Gerber actually scored the first try for the Springboks in that test against the All Blacks at Ellis Park. Willie, thank you very much for being a guest on Front Row Rugby. It was lovely having you on, and hopefully we can have you on again in the future.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, Ian MacDonald was our guest. You can go and have a look at that video. It's appearing on the screen right now. Next time, Tian Strauss will join us. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, why not tackle the like button? You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content from Front Row Rugby. See you next time.